Alright, hello my friends. Sorry I don't have the greatest mic, but I've been asked to make a tutorial on how to figure out delta V and how to get to and from other planetary places in Kerbal Space Program. So that's what we're going to do here. And basically, I've searched up this delta V map. If you just Google search delta V map KSP, it will bring this map up, and this is pretty much all you need for console version or stock PC. Doesn't include any kind of planet packs or anything like that, so we are good to go. So I'll explain this map a little bit. It does explain it a little bit here, but I can break it down and do a for dummies version because that's kind of how I learned too. Okay, so Kerbin is where we all start, unless we start from the moon, in which case this whole delta V map doesn't work, but for the purpose of this tutorial we're starting from Kerbin. So what it's telling you here is that you need approximately 3,400 delta V to get to orbit, to an 80-kilometer orbit around Kerbin. And I would say that's pretty accurate. I know some people have done it for a little less, but I usually pack this plus another like 200 or 300 delta V because I tend to make some mistakes here and there. So that's 80 kilometers into orbit. So once you're there, you need to get into, you know, an escape velocity. So that's like an additional 950 delta V. That's pretty much what that's telling you, is to get to the edge of Kerbin's sphere of influence, and then that's when you're breaking the point into being into a solar orbit. So from there, for the purpose of this tutorial, I think what I want to do is go from Kerbin to Ike and back. So I build rockets from top to bottom, so I kind of consider building them from this direction down, but I'll explain everything as I go along. So the end numbers, like this one here, is basically how much delta V total it takes to get to that planet. So it's telling us we need 5,300 approximately delta V to get to Ike. And that's not that much delta V. That's a, that's a really easy number to hit, even with low tech. So I'm going to take you through a tutorial on my science mode and use some stuff that's not very high tech to get this done, assuming that my communications network wants to work with us, but we'll get there. And if I can't, then I'll show you how to do some communication stuff. So basically, I want to build this rocket in a few stages. I want a launch stage that gets me to orbit. So I'm going to pack approximately 3,500 delta V into that. And then basically, oh yeah, these are all like vacuum numbers, by the way. But if you're on a planet, you need to factor in the fact that you have an atmosphere that you're working with. So launch stage needs about 3,500 delta V. And then I want a transfer stage that takes me from basically this orbital point all the way to the point where I'm in a capture with Duna. And then I want to have another stage that breaks away and leaves a communication satellite relay here in Duna orbit. And then from there, I'm going to send a lander that goes to Ike. And then from there, I'm going to have a science probe that flies back to Kerbin and lands. I'm not going to make any promises about landing at Kerbal Space Center or anything like that. That's a little out of my league. So bust out the calculator. So basically, I need to have one stage that has 950 delta V plus 130 plus 250. So my interplanetary stage is going to have 1300, well actually we'll call it 1500 delta V. And then the stage that goes to Ike and returns is going to have 2 more stages. So basically, the one that takes us to Ike's surface, we can have 30 plus 180 plus 390. So we'll pack another. See, this is where it gets tricky. I'm going to pack 1000 delta V into this stage. And then we have a science probe return vessel. And that's going to need to go through this whole branch back. This is a little deceiving though, because you can arrow brake on the way back, so you don't really need to have 3400 delta V there. But we're going to pack lots. More than enough. 390 plus 180 plus 30 is 250 plus 130 plus 950 plus, yeah, we'll call it another 2000 delta V. So we're aiming for 3800 to 4000 delta V in the science return stage. So total, let's say it's 4000 plus 1000 plus 1500 plus 3500. I'm going to build a rocket that has 10,000 delta V. So if I don't make it to Ike and back, there's something that I did really wrong. And we'll see how that goes. Okay, now we need to also plan a transfer window. So if you go to this address here, ksp.olex.biz, you will end up at this transfer window calculator, and this is what I always used when I played console, and it's still what I use now if I'm not using Kerbal Alarm Clock on PC. So my origin is Kerbin, and I want to go to Duna. Well, really I want to go to Ike. And our parking orbit is only going to be 80 kilometers above the surface level. So basically, you're going to put your origin, your destination, and your original height off of Kerbin. And then you're going to click Do the Maths. Okay, shit. Okay, so it's telling me that it can only do bodies orbiting the same body. So we're going to go Kerbin to Duna, and that's going to tell us. So, and I already know this, it's like a 45-degree angle. So I'll show you in Kerbal Space Program how you're going to use this basically. And basically you're going to go into your tracking station and set up your map and then time warp until Kerbin looks like it's this. Like you're going to want to line it up, turn your map until you have Kerbin so it's always here relative to the sun. And then you're going to wait until Duna is at roughly a 45-degree angle. And then what's going to happen when you set up your ejection burn is you're going to eject 151 degrees into your orbit. So we won't worry about this so much. I'll just show you how to figure this out. There's quite a guide here. It's pretty good. This is pretty much how I learned to do it. Also, it's telling me that the ejection burn is going to cost 1000 delta V. So, alright, so here we are. I'm going to show you where I'm at in my science mode here, and we're going to plan a rocket to Ike and back. Okay, so I'm not like crazy through the tech tree or anything, but I have a few parts unlocked, and I'll show you how I plan on doing this all. So I start off with thinking small. Smallness is the key, so we're gonna call this Ike return, and basically you need to think in terms of saving weight all the time. This is like the #1 thing that I see people do wrong is they build big rockets and a lot of pieces for no real good reason, and they don't really get any return for their investment. And if you're playing career mode, that's really important, because you have to manage your funds and stuff. So I'm starting with this Probodyne Hex core, because it's the best probe I have, and it's light. And basically, this is going to be my stage that comes back to Kerbin. And how it's going to come back with science is with one of these fancy-dancy little experiment storage units. This is like the best thing ever. And we're going to put a battery on there and a little baby heat shield. And basically, this is the only thing that's going to come back through the atmosphere. Okay. So, how we're going to get this back to Kerbin is with what I determined to be something like 3,500 to 4,000 delta V. So I've got a decoupler here because I don't want to bring this whole fuel arrangement back through the atmosphere and have this parachute deal with it. So here's how this is going to go down. If you go down here to this thing that looks like a delta V symbol, and this is the same on console, you come down here using your mouse, you like left click the stick in, and then change this to vacuum, and we'll get into the show all button a little later on. We don't need to worry about that right now. But what it's telling me right now is that I have 2,300 delta V in a vacuum with this configuration right now. If I hit show all, it'll tell me a few other things like the ISP, the thrust, the TWR, which is thrust to weight ratio. This is pretty important, especially if you're launching, and then how long it will burn for. So basically, I've still got a really good thrust to weight ratio, so I can add some more fuel to this thing and not really worry. So I'm going to add some fuel. 3,800 delta V. That's perfect for what we want to do. Now, I may or may not have to add a little bit more because we also still need to add solar panels. Right? Those are important. And I'm also going to add 2 of these Communitron DTS M1s because they combine and they'll have a nice strong signal. I got 2G connection. It's about the same as this relay antenna, and I know that's enough for Duna transfer, so we'll get a little bit more into that in a second. Okay, so that's basically what this vehicle is going to be. Now, I'm just setting some things here. where basically if I hit 1 on my keyboard, it's going to extend the antenna and the solar panels. You can do this on PlayStation or Xbox as well by going into this menu and setting them for the radial menu. So there's that. Now I need another decoupler. So below this is going to be a Science Junior and a landing unit. Because after all, we're doing this for the science. This is science mode. I want to have 2 thermometers. Whoops. Two thermometers, 2 mystery goo containers, 2 barometers. I don't think I have a bicoupler to do. Oh, I do. No, I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, so basically I'm going to do these ones in flight above Ike or Duna, and these ones on the ground, and this on the ground, because that's where it's worth the most. And basically, this is going to be our landing unit, so we're going to do this. And this is just a typical landing configuration that I use quite often. Where's that other engine? Alright, so I've got a 0.92 thrust to weight ratio with that. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to sacrifice a little delta V for a little bit of thrust here. That's okay. So just to recap our numbers here, I took a picture of my little notepad scribble document there. So I wanted to have science probe return stage, which is this stage. I wanted it to have 3,800 to 4,000 delta V, so I'm going to need to put a little bit more fuel on that. And then the landing stage, I wanted to have 1,000 delta V. So we can add another one of those, see what that does. It's 3,600. 4,000. Nice. It's got a shit thrust to weight ratio though. That just kills my delta V. Alright, we've got some problem solving to do. Alright, when I'm set to Ike, I have a very good thrust to weight ratio, so I don't really have to worry about that then. Hopefully. We'll see how this mission goes. Okay, we still need landing legs. Okay, so this is going to take us, make sure this is staged correctly. Okay, so this is going to burn, and then that's going to go with this. Perfect. We want one more thing here. Lights are handy. Okay, now how I'm gonna protect this thing on launch is with a eggshell thing, majig. One of these protective shells. But I'll show you a little trick. So I need to attach it to this piece here. So I'm going to use one of these structural tubes, because this is much lighter than using a fuel tank, even though you could use a fuel tank to do this. These need to go up a little bit. That'll be good. Okay. So yeah, this is much lighter than a fuel tank if I was to use one of those. And then basically I'm going to have one of the payload fairings. And I'm going to build a payload fairing around it. But before I do that, I'm going to add two of my favorite little things here. These little boosters are going to be staged when this goes. So basically this goes and it's going to push this stage away. And the last thing I do when I build my rocket will be build that fairing. Okay, we need an interplanetary stage. And I had 1500 Delta V sorted out for that. Now, there's something else that I want to add to this interplanetary stage, and that is a relay satellite. So I'm going to do that with an interstage fairing. So basically, you need to right click, or I think it's click square on PlayStation, to pull up this menu, your contextual menu, and click interstage node on. And then once you do that, you can move this down, and it's going to give you a little stage, a little protected shell. And inside of that, we are going to place two of these little satellites, or these dishes, and some batteries. So basically, when this stage gets left behind and this one goes on its journey to Ike, this will act as a relay satellite. for this and future missions. We wanted 1500 in our interplanetary stage. 1800 will be nice. Set these up real quick. Okay, so I'm setting it up so that basically when I hit this one button, it's going to turn the lights on, blow off the protective shells, and deploy all the equipment that I need for communication and electricity. So that's going to be those two solar panels, these two communitrons, all these solar panels, and then, yeah. Yeah, there's one important thing that I forgot here. We want to put a reaction wheel here. This will just help control everything. I'm just slimming this down a little bit by clipping these in like that. Should be okay. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to tempt the fate here. Okay, now we need an orbital stage. And just a little note about decouplers versus stack separators. So like, I could use stack separators, which blow off on both sides, but they weigh a little bit more. You'll see that the 25 series stack separator is 0.21 tons, and a 25 series decoupler is 0.16 tons. And the difference is like basically these decouplers will stay on the unit that they're pointing away from. So, whereas a stack separator will detach from both sides. It's kind of essential in certain situations, but this is not one of those situations. We are saving weight. I can't stress that enough. Okay, so we need a launch stage. And you'll notice that I don't really have a ton of parts here, so we're going to do this pretty low tech. I like this stage to be orange. Okay, so so far it's got 2800 delta V. And I like to use these ones because I can just like adjust them as I need to. The one thing we need to make sure is that on Kerbin at sea level we have enough thrust to weight ratio to lift off. I'll show you how to check all that after. Okay, so again, I'm being cheap and easy, so I'm going to use some solid rocket boosters. I think these came on the latest update. With the ESA stuff. And again, aerodynamics. Okay, so like I said, I like these things because I can adjust them, so I'm going to bring them in a little bit. And then something that's kind of crucial in my opinion is Separatrons. And these are pointing away from the main rocket base. And they're going to stage with these decouplers. Just like this. Although these need to be there. So that should that'll be iffy, but we have enough fuel to get to correct it. So okay, this is what we're gonna do. That's cool. Tail fins, in my opinion, are kind of crucial. Rockets don't handle the greatest without them. Launch stability enhancers. I like to put a couple of these things on. Oh my, I'm just having a hard time here. Alright, time to build some fairings. Alright, that is going to be our rocket that takes us to Eichenbach, hopefully. Saying we have 6,900 delta V, which is more than enough. We determined in the last video that we only needed like 5,300 or something. So we'll get there. Question is, will we get back? So first stage is going to be that main booster. Probably not at full throttle. Obviously, the stability enhancers are going to let go, and the side boosters are going to go as well. Second stage is going to be all the little mini boosters, and then they're going to let go. And I still have 900 delta V in that stage still, but it'll be more than that because, like I said, I'm not going to use full throttle on that stage. And then basically, we forgot a couple Separatrons. This will be the next stage to drop, and then I'll have my interplanetary stage ready to go, and this will all be deployed as well. Alright. Now, what I like to do is put this thing on the launch pad. from the launch pad, we are going to go to the tracking station. Now, we want to get to Duna. So, as I was saying in that last video explaining the transfer window calculator, set it to warp, and as Kerbin rotates the sun, you want to rotate your screen in such a way that it just stays horizontal. And basically, you want to do this until you have a 45-degree line, which looks like from here to here being flat, of course. And then Duna should be like up here. I'm going to use a mod, because I can, and do something like this. And this is Kerbal Alarm Clock for anybody who's new to PC mods. So I'm going to set up a transfer window, and the parent is always the sun for me, and the origin is going to be Kerbin, and the target is going to be Duna. And I'm going to make the margin like 100 hours. And basically what's going to happen is I'm going to set this up to go, and it's going to take care of the stopping the warp for me. But you'll see, as I rotate the screen to keep Kerbin on a straight line with the sun, Duna is coming around. But really, in reality, what's happening is Duna's orbiting slower and Kerbin is catching up, so eventually we'll be completely around. And this is where you can really burn some time in your game as far as like in-game time goes. So if you have ground-based science experiments or anything like that, it's a good idea to get them running before you do a warp like this. Alright, so, you know, we're probably at like a 95-degree angle now with Duna. We're getting close. Okay, so if you draw a line from here to Duna, it should be roughly 45 degrees. Now I'm going to go to the launch pad. Alright, now we have a rocket on the launch pad, and I've got to fly it to Duna. So we're going to set our target, and I like to set the maneuver mode to be like this so I can see my my apoapsis and everything. And alright, let's see how this goes. Yeah. See, I can really dial this throttle back. I'm like really down on the throttle. I like to get over quite early. Aiming for that nice 45-degree angle. Alright, now what I usually do is, it depends on how the rocket's behaving, but sometimes I'll set this to prograde, sometimes I won't. It kind of depends on how the gravity turn is going. But we're doing okay as it is, so I'm just going to leave it. You will notice we're pitched up a little bit higher than our prograde. Alright. And that's why we like Separatrons. Notice there's no tail fin damage or anything. Alright, and we're set up to orbit, well, 100 kilometers. I should have cut that engine a little earlier. Now, I will set this to prograde. I'm just using a little bit of thrust here to right the rocket. There we go. And as soon as we're out of the atmosphere, I'll end up blowing these things off. And alright, so there we go. Alright, now we're still not in orbit, so we got to do something about that. I like to use maneuver nodes even when I'm doing an orbit usually, and I just drag it out until it flips like that, and then I go back a little bit, and you know, it's roughly circular, it's not too bad, so that's cool. And what you can do is you can hit that button and it'll warp to it, or you can click on the line here and do warp to next maneuver. Our burn time's 36 seconds, so we want to start our burn, well, I should say we want to have half of that 36 second burn on either side of the maneuver node. So I'm going to start my burn at roughly 20 seconds. And of course, we want to be facing the maneuver point. And that's still not enough. Okay, there we go. That's cool. I'm not really too worried about having a perfectly circular orbit. But yeah, we're safe. We have a periapsis of 100 kilometers, an apoapsis of 158. Now we want to get to Duna. So what I would suggest doing is just kind of play around with your maneuver nodes a little bit. I'm going to start on this side and drag it out until I'm in escape velocity, and then zoom out a little bit. And alright, so there we go. Alright, now we're still not in orbit, so we got to do something about that. I like to use maneuver nodes even when I'm doing an orbit usually, and I just drag it out until it flips like that, and then I go back a little bit, And, you know, it's roughly circular, it's not too bad. So that's cool. And what you can do is you can hit that button and it'll warp to it, or you can click on the line here and do warp to next maneuver. Our burn time's 36 seconds, so we want to start our burn, well, I should say we want to have half of that 36 second burn on either side of the maneuver node. So I'm going to start my burn at roughly 20 seconds. And of course, we want to be facing the maneuver point. And that's still not enough. Okay, there we go. That's cool. I'm not really too worried about having a perfectly circular orbit. But yeah, we're safe. We have a periapsis of 100 kilometers, an apoapsis of 158. Now we want to get to Duna. So what I would suggest doing is just kind of play around with your maneuver nodes a little bit. I'm going to start on this side and drag it out until I'm in escape velocity, and then zoom out a little bit and see what's going on here. Oh, I almost had it there. Alright, so there's a Duna encounter there. I don't know what's going on in here though, like, am I getting a moon gravity assist? Cool, okay, I'll take it. Of course, we're going to save the game before we do anything. Now, I'm going to orient myself over to where that transfer burn is. Really though, do I need that 500 delta V? Yeah. Won't be shooting ourselves in the foot just yet. Come on now. This is kind of an issue of not having RCS or a control wheel in line with this huge body. Okay, so we're gonna warp. I'm just warping to the maneuver point here. Okay, so our burn time's 48 seconds. So I'm gonna start this burn at roughly 25-30 seconds. I don't know how the thrust to weight ratio is going to affect it after I lose the fuel here. So this little bar represents the fact that this stage is going to run out of fuel partway through this maneuver node burn. There's another stage. This thing's a little bit more reasonable to fly, at least. See if this whole moon thing works out in our favor. I like to get right down there to the nitty-gritty. Well, we can correct it. I'm going to put a maneuver there just to give me something to use to warp. And off we go. There's the moon. Well, the two of them together. Okay, so we need to do a little bit of correcting here. It says our separation is 65,000 kilometers. I'm not sure if we're going too fast or too slow, so let's try slowing down a little bit first. So I'm going to hover my mouse or cursor over this and just give it a little bit of throttle. Okay, so the number got bigger, so we need to speed up a little bit. So I'm pointing prograde, of course. That's what I mean by speeding up. And again, hovering over this, I'm going to see what happens when I speed up. Okay, so I'm getting closer and closer and closer, and there's a dune encounter. Our periapsis is pretty low. It's not terrible. We can get better though. I don't really want to be in millions of meters. Okay, that'll do. And now we're going to warp all the way over there. Notice we're connected to a whole bunch of things here. I got something on Eve. Got something over here. Kerbin. Alrighty, we are getting close. Still got us a good signal, which is nice. This was my pitfall on my last mission, where I try to do this. Alright, we are in Duna's sphere of influence. We're going to save. Now we're going to go to the periapse and slow down until we are captured in a Duna orbit. Alright, time to slam the brakes on. Slowing down here is going to allow the gravity well here to capture us. And, you know, there's a couple things that make this mission a little bit easier for me, is like having this probe here already gives me something to bounce my signal off if I need to. And there's already something on Ike, which I'm pretty sure is another lander similar to the one that I'm using now. Alright, we're captured. And I don't want this orbit to be too tight, because then the planets can block the orbit quite easily. But what I'm going to do is set my target there, and, well, I'm going to fix this up for sure. Oh my. Actually, we're not going to worry about that with this stage. What we're going to do is take these off of that stage, because I don't want to screw up the orbit. But we're going to leave that behind. Oftentimes, Ike is quite easy to capture. I didn't mean to do that. Add maneuver. So, like, if I come in here, yeah, see, I didn't even really have to line it up. It's a little awkward because I'm coming in against the orbit of Ike. But I'm also traveling very slowly, so I'm not too worried about that. Very slowly. This isn't the greatest. We'll see if this maintains signal long enough to get a capture on that. If not, I'll load back. Yeah, awkward. Close here for a landing. Okay, important thing about landings. Make sure you click this and change it to surface. Change this to surface as well. I don't want to go too crazy slow because then this just goes by way too slow. Remember, this is like 100 meters tall as well. Alright, I totally forgot to do my science, but that's okay. Okay, now we want to do a materials study. We want to keep that. We want to observe the mystery goo and keep that. We want to keep all the science. And then you're going to collect it all into this. Now, in my opinion, the smart thing to do is go back to the tracking station and wait for another transfer window. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to save the game. And I'm going to set up another transfer window alarm. So it's going to sit there for another year. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm using low-tech antennas that can't really reach that far. So if I had started my journey, there's a strong chance that I would have lost communication and then been kind of screwed. So better safe than sorry. I mean, in this whole year that's going by right now, I could be doing other things as well, you know. But if you look at the rest of my stuff here, I'm not too concerned about time. We're almost there. And again, we've warped until Kerbin with a horizontal line to the sun, and Duna are roughly 45 degrees. Now, again, we're going to save. The lighting just looks fantastic. Okay, now we want to make an orbit around Ike. So basically, this next stage, I'm going to... That's not what was supposed to happen. Okay. Let's try this again. Stage. That's a little bit more like it. Alright, we have a safe orbit around Ike. Now, I want to get back into Duna's sphere of influence. Oops, I went too far. That's okay. Okay. Now we need to find out how to get back to Kerbin, so we are going to play around with the maneuver nodes a little bit. Okay, so it looks like we need to... Perfect. That will get us back. We're gonna warp ourselves out of here. And then we're gonna warp ourselves all the way to Kerbin. Okay, so we're back into Kerbin's sphere of influence, which is really nice, and we're only going 940 meters per second, which is really good. I'm going to warp to the periapse. And of course, I'm going to save the game. Now, I like to engine brake like a crazy man, so that's what we're going to do. That's why I packed a lot of extra Delta V. I'm not going to rely only on aero braking. Get this periapse down. $63,000. Okay, so that means we're gonna like hit the atmosphere as we come in, but that's okay. That's what the fun games are all about. There it is. All right, now we're going very fast, and we're about to hit the atmosphere. So there's an important thing that's going to happen here, and that is using my engine to brake. I don't really care if the stage gets destroyed, and it will, so... This is why it's nice to have extra fuel. You can do aggressive things like this. Alright, perfect. Now, we're just gonna warp through this a little bit. We're getting plasma blackout, so once we start burning up like this, you can't control the probe anymore. That's where a lot of people go wrong in their landings. Warp through that a little bit too. We don't really need this heat shield anymore, so whoop, get rid of that. Just totally clipped through my thing. Down we go. while we recover. And that is a to and from Ike mission from planning to finish. Thanks for watching.